Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2024. And that brings us to a title which has been designated by Criterion at spine number 1218. And this is a work which is described as being from the year 2023. And the name of the filmmaker is Justine Triet. And the name of the work is, and please, once again, I'm very sorry, please pardon me for my very poor pronunciation of the language. I hope you can forgive me. But the name of the work is Anatomie d'une chute, or as it's known in English, Anatomy of a Fall. This is the work, the incredibly captivating and very complex, dense, rich work, which is described as being from the year 2023. And the name of the filmmaker is Justine Triet, written by Justine Triet and Arthur Harari, and starring in among its really brilliant cast, Sandra Hüller and Swan Arlo, and Milo Machado Graner, and others. This is the work. What a film this is. Please pardon me for my very poor pronunciation of the language. I hope you can forgive me. But the work is Anatomie d'une chute, or as it's known in English, Anatomy of a Fall. Wow. This is an incredible work being released on this Blu-ray edition courtesy of the Criterion Collection. We'll speak a little bit later in this video about the contours of this release, some of the supplements that can be found together with this release. But what a film this is. This is my first time to watch this film, Anatomy of a Fall. I heard so much about it upon its initial release last year in 2023, and so many people recommended this film to me. There are so many friends of this channel who championed this work and recommended it to me, to others, and I really wanted to see it. I wasn't able to at the time, but when I heard about the Criterion Collection news that it would be released, and voila, here we are. I was so thrilled by that news, because of the excitement and heightened anticipation that I had based upon all that I heard about this, not to mention, of course, the critical praise and the attention that it got during, say, award season with respect to the 2023-2024 award season. So it had a lot of buzz, and so the anticipation levels in my own heart were quite high. And so when this finally arrived, or when I was able to get it, I was very eager to watch it indeed. And upon watching it, I felt stunned. I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I was grappling with a lot of compelling and quite complex questions about truth and perception, as well as many other things. And so I had to let it sit and cook, and my own way, in terms of not being able to grasp all the details and considerations on a single watch, because I have a very shallow way of viewing films, unfortunately. I had to watch it again, and so I spent a little bit of time and then watched it again, and then spent a little bit of more time and then watched it again. And so I have seen it a number of times now, thanks to this wonderful Criterion release. And I must say that I am just, it leaves one feeling numbed. It leaves one feeling exhilaration, and yet there's some kind of irksome quality of not being sure. And that, I think, is eating away at a sense of the almost inexorable a need for a kind of truth, or a kind of teaching of what truth is, but ultimately realizing that there are many things that are reliant upon concepts of perception and concepts of, say, sort of almost existential considerations that are almost impenetrable beyond the very bounds of our own, say, boundaries, physical and skin boundaries of our own, say, limitations of perception. There's only so much that one can know. There's only so much that one can perceive as being the truth. And so when things happen beyond that boundary, beyond that realm, then how are we as viewers or perhaps as participants of this drama, how are we to endeavor to try to resolve these unknowns, these questions, these what has happened considerations that really have very considerable and quite high life and death stakes. And that, I think, of maybe my very broad and roundabout way of trying to describe it on the one hand, but we can also describe it as a taut legal thriller, a police procedural set against the backdrop of a kind of French courtroom drama proceedings. And of course, I think these two considerations can be combined because, after all, when we think about the quest for truth, in a kind of quagmire of inquiry and investigation details that is part of the police procedural aspect. This idea of quest for truth is embodied in an objective way through the institutional mechanisms of the justice system. Thus paving the way for a kind of combination of these two, say, viewpoints of the film, kind of quest for truth on the one hand, and the capabilities or incapabilities, as the case may or may not be, of the organs of the legal system, of the justice system, while at the same time being an incredibly powerful human drama where the more details emerge, the more questions arise. And so this is a really just a powerful powerhouse of a work from Justine Triet and Company, Anatomy of a Fall. And so in that discussion, I think I've touched upon a little bit of the plot or story structure in a way, but if we were to try to further maybe describe or endeavor to describe the plot or story structure of this film, Anatomy of a Fall, I think we can focus in on a kind of structure that's focusing or that is centering in on maybe two basic environments. One being a chalet, kind of a family home that is in the Alps, the French Alps, where we have a family, a husband, a wife, and a young son. And we have this is the Samuel character and the Sandra character, and then the Daniel character, who is the young boy. And there's also a dog, Snoop. And we have a family unit, and it seems like upon first glance or upon first meeting, they seem to be a family unit that has a certain degree of, say, financial stability and success, professional stability and success. There's a kind of emotional family core represented by certain aspects of, say, peace and serenity in the open moments of the film from a certain perspective anyway. But as we proceed through the opening moments of the first third of this film, we understand that there are certain ruptures or certain, say, core, almost volatile events or maybe cracks of the surface that might reveal some kind of unease underneath. And this seems to, or perhaps reaches a kind of sudden and very violent and very horrifying a turn of events when we are suddenly confronted with the dead body of the husband, the father, outside, in terms of seemingly falling from a great height and perhaps dying through some sort of circumstances in respect of or in relation to or otherwise in the course of or following the fall. So we have the discovery of this body, and thus already kind of questioning and development and wondering what has happened will begin the progress of the film. And here we have focusing in particular on another one of the main characters, who is the Sandra character, who is the wife of this man who is the mother of the young boy, and who herself is an incredibly important and compelling character. And we meet her immediately, or almost immediately, at the start of the film. And this is, of course, portrayed by the brilliant Sandra Hüller in one of the great performances, because we have someone who is, of course, at the center of the inquiry as to what happened to her husband, and what were the circumstances that she is aware of prior to the discovery of the body. And so we understand that she is explaining from her point of view what happened. But as the film progresses and as certain questions begin to emerge, there begin to be questions that arise that may or may not begin to cast the suspicion of doubt over what she is saying or professing what has happened, because there might be circumstances that emerge during the police inquiry that may point towards Sandra as being more involved in the death of her husband than she is initially professing. And so therein lies a kind of core deep question. How did this man die? And what did Sandra have to do with it, if anything at all? And what were the circumstances that led up to this man's death? And is this man's death something that he did himself? Did he die by his own hand? Or was his life taken from him? So was he killed by his own hand, or was he killed by someone else? And thus the suspicion, or the casting of suspicion, is directed towards Sandra after certain other events of inquiry come to light. And then we have thus the question of the guilt or innocence of this woman, Sandra, which leads to a kind of legal courtroom drama, as well as the police procedural, the details of the death, the distance of the body from the building, and certain application of police procedural and physics as to the possibility or impossibility of one story or another. What about the family dynamics? What were some of the circumstances of the relationship between the married couple that may or may not have provided the possibility of, say, a motive for wanting to kill, if this is indeed an act of killing, an act of murder? And so all these questions begin to arise, and Sandra, as we see, has her own explanation as to what happened, which is something that is beyond, or something that is not having to do with her being directly involved in taking the life of her husband, or rather something that is suggesting her innocence. But whether this is the truth and whether she will be believed, these are two related but separate questions. This is again part of the compelling and quite gripping nature of the courtroom process. And along the way, as I mentioned, as further details emerge as to what happened on that day, what happened prior to the events that led to the death of this man, as we find out more, or as we hear from certain perspectives about what happened, we begin to question what the truth might be. And so things we think we know, the more we realize that we don't know. So there is a really compelling, almost circular quality, and almost a spiral-like quality in the context of the quest for truth, that I think makes this a really compelling and complex tale that is also ringing in the sense of a kind of a courtroom dynamic, or a judicial system quagmire dynamic, in the sense of what is the attainment of truth, or what is the possibility of attainment of truth, and is that really the question, or is the question the idea of making arguments and debate skills? And if that's the case, then what is the point of trying to get a sense of the truth to begin with? I mean, these are quite profound questions, and it kind of leads to a sense of perhaps cynicism, because one might view the process as being a cynical, almost quixotic or cynical endeavor at trying to attain the truth, or in other words, trying to attain something which is unattainable, or or is it less than cynical? Or is it something other than cynical? Is there something else that we can say could be said to be at play here? In other words, maybe a kind of faith or a kind of quest towards truth that involves, on a humane level, on a kind of level of maybe humane equity, or an emotional, intuitive level, this idea of belief and the power of belief and the basis of the power of belief. And I think here we have so many turns of the film that have, I think, a lot to do with a lot of the core relationships, the core emotional relationships that also emerge as the film progresses, that between mother and son, that between the Sandra and Vincent, the counselor, who is also an old friend and lawyer, and we understand that there is a kind of emotional relationship between the two of them. And I mentioned, of course, mother and son. There is a huge anchor of a relationship, almost a heart and soul relationship between mother and son that forms an emotional bond, as well as perhaps forming some of the crucial, key, critical plot points that may or may not make the difference in terms of the guilt or innocence, or the finding of guilty or not guilty, with respect to this character of Sandra. And so this is a really brilliant and quite compelling work, and it is a legal thriller. It is also a human drama, a family drama. It is a film about truth or lack of truth. Lies, maybe. Are these lies? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It is a film about, as I say, belief. It is a film about guilt, and guilt in all various forms. You know, guilt in the context of the judicial system, but also guilt in the context of day-to-day relationships. The things that people can do to hurt each other in an emotional relationship, the things that people can do in the course of a relationship that might hurt each other or hurt the ones one loves. And that has to do with maybe the relationship between husband and wife. That also has to do with the relationship between parents and children. And so, and also maybe the relationship between family members, including husband, wife, son, and of course dog. And Snoop, dog, is another key character in this work, which is one of the, I think, charming and also very, very intimate moments or intimate aspects of this film. Sometimes we have the dog as a kind of witness, a dog's point of view that also is, I think, paralleling a lot of the things that we, as viewers of the film, might be seeing. Again, things that we know or things that we might intuit as being the truth, but also things that are kept to us at a distance. There's only so much that we can know based on our own interaction with the work and the circumstances and the movements of the characters within the world of Anatomy of a Fall. So. And I love how the parallel of the dog's point of view, I think, adds to that, as well as being another really captivating aspect of this film. And two, I mentioned perception and truth. I mean, perception is really important as well, and how perception is perceived, right? Because it's about what we see and what we hear, what we witness. Witness testimony is very important in certain aspects of the courtroom legal drama. Seeing, eyesight, this is also very important too, and how eyesight is, and I'll try to be as vague as possible here, how eyesight has a lot to do with the sort of the physical and emotional attributes of some of our main characters, including the young boy, the Daniel character, Milo Machado Granier character, in another brilliant performance, by the way. So the senses are very important. Also, perception and expression vis-a-vis language. One of the key points of this is words and explanation. This is coming forth in the inquiry, and also the sort of the practice sessions between lawyer and client, as well as the sessions in court. The oratory of the prosecuting counsel and the defense counsel, or prosecutor and defense counsel, and also the oratory of the judicial bench, and also language too: French, English, German. It's also, and this also becomes a key point in terms of communication or lack of communication, or the ability or inability to communicate what is truly in one's heart, and how that has an effect in terms of the human drama, the human relationships, say between Samuel and Sandra on the one hand, because that comes up as a key point, and also in terms of how language plays a role in the proceedings of the judicial system of the court. The French language versus the native language of the Sandra character, and so this also plays a key role as well. And so I love that and how that's linked to this idea of perception. Anatomy of a Fall is a film about perception, what we perceive, and what we perceive to be the truth, or what is perceived to be the truth, and whether or not that is indeed the truth. That is a very profound question, or set of questions indeed, set against here what we are being presented here by with this brilliant story, Justine Triet's great work, and as I say, among other things, the brilliance of the structure, the kind of back and forth and sort of temporal considerations of the work, the attention to detail when we talk about the police inquiry, the police procedural, and the judicial process, as well as, of course, the heart and soul of the emotional relationship dynamics. And we have, I think, brilliant performances all around. Swan Arlo, and also Milo Machado Graner, and Sandra Hüller in a tour de force, a real tour de force. The emotional swings, as well as the hardened sort of emotional fortification, if you will, that is shining forth on the one hand, but also kind of query or confusion on the other hand, and whether or not that is a register of something authentic, or is this a register of something that is not authentic. And these and other questions, I think, are so multi-textures and multi-layered throughout the film, as embodied by this great performance, that I think it is a film that is, I think, engendering and encouraging so many questions going forward. I thought this was a really, and I mean this in a positive way, a really tough experience, really challenging experience. And there are some scenes that are very emotionally intense in terms of the heated arguments between people who are intimate, who have been in a relationship for a long time, and the things that one can say to another that can really hurt, that can really sting. And that kind of sting is also here in this film, as well as the possibility, perhaps, of breaking through the cloak of cynicism. That might be something that is akin to hope or optimism, perhaps. Whether that is indeed the case, it's based on your perception of the film as you watch the film, and as the film brings you to its climax and to its resolution, period or question mark. This is something that you grapple with as viewers, and your own intake of this as you watch this film, and what your perceptions lead you to believe as to what is happening. I mean, it is that kind of a profound film watching experience. This is a really compelling work indeed. This is the film which is Anatomy of a Fall. The Criterion Collection has released this film, Anatomy of a Fall, Anatomie d'une chute, on the occasion of this year, 2024. And I have the Blu-ray edition here. It's a single disc Blu-ray edition. And I also have the disc in the player right now. Please note that the Blu-ray menu is one of these great ones where you have a montage of moving images from the film. So just in case, for purposes of not wanting to unintentionally offend the YouTube copyright gods, I've just blocked it out for the benefit of this video. So I hope you can forgive me. I apologize for that. But once again, this is a Blu-ray edition at spine number 1218. And this is described as being the 2K digital master with 5.1 surround DTS HD master audio soundtrack. So this is the disc right here. And I also have the fold-out insert, which is part of this Criterion release. And so It has certain information about acknowledgements, production credits, etc. But I don't see any specific notes about, say, the notes about the master. And I can understand that because this is a film again from 2023, and so it's my understanding that usually for really recent contemporary releases by Criterion, there might not necessarily be notes for purposes of the transfer, the master, or restoration, because that's not what I think we're talking about here. But we are talking about a 2K digital master with 5.1 surround. So in respect of those details and my own, say, limited experience with the film, because I've not seen this film in the theater, so I unfortunately am not able to speak about my sensory experiences with the film relative to, say, a theater going experience, because I don't have that theater going experience with this, unfortunately. I wish I did, but what I can say is I found the picture and sound quality to be quite vivid indeed. I should note that I love some of the color schemes here, in terms of the way it goes in and out of interior rooms and also the expansive nature. Um, Justine Triet, in one of the interviews that's part of the Criterion release, mentions among some of the visual cues and visual, say, reference points. She mentions the works of Richard Fleischer, like the Boston Strangler, etc. So I found that reference to be really quite remarkable, and there's a sense of that kind of richness of palette that also has a sort of saturated look as well at times. So I find that very much part of the proceedings here when I watch the work, at least in the context of this Criterion release, and also the sound too. I mean, there is a great emphasis and almost a peculiar way that sound and music are used. Not score music per se, but actually music such as a piano tune, such as 50 Cent. And it's used in, I think, a very effective way that also has a sense of echo, but also it's an interesting motif because it's one of those things where you get a sense of musical refrains that seem to be part of the decor on the one hand, but also are suggestive of a kind of a sensory perception that may or may not be pointing towards what is a kind of singular truth. Maybe there's a multitude of truths, who knows? But I think that the sound has the ringing quality of the sound is so haunting. So, of course, that's captured when one listens to this film as one puts the disc in the player. So I'm impressed. I'm absolutely impressed indeed. And there were no skips or stops, at least in terms of my own disc. So I was fortunate in that respect. So it was a smooth and quite engaging watch indeed when I watched the film, courtesy of this Criterion release. And so now, while I still have the Blu-ray disc in the machine, my dear friends, let me now go to the menu because I want to speak a little bit about the supplements that are found together with this Criterion release. So I don't have again, a good frame of reference in terms of any other releases of this film outside of this Criterion release. So my apologies for my lack of information on that part. I apologize. But what I can say is, well, there is a collection of supplements, one being very evidently something that has been produced by the Criterion Collection, and others which seem to have been produced for other non-Criterion labels. But that's okay because we still have a wealth of supplements that are all gathered here under this one umbrella of a Criterion release. So the first one is an interview with Justine Triet, who is the director and writer, co-writer of this work. And this is described here as, in this interview conducted by the Criterion Collection in 2024, director Justine Triet revisits her journey in co-writing Anatomy of a Fall with Arthur Harari, along with her challenges of getting the film made exactly as she had envisioned it. So this is a one-on-one interview with Justine Triet. This is approximately 26 minutes. And this is truly great. One of the great things about my watch of this film, courtesy of this Criterion release, is getting to know a little bit more about the Triet, the filmmaker, artist. And so I get a lot of education about her background and her body of work and her experience, as she describes it, with a world of documentary and then also in the world of feature films. And so, this, in many ways, is a kind of great introduction or primer into the works of Triet on the one hand. So, this is really wonderful indeed. And so, she describes the film in terms of, she describes it as being her fourth feature film, and how she appreciates and admires and enjoys spontaneity in movies, accidents, as she says, which I think, if you think about the actual plot of this film, Anatomy of the Fall, there's a way in which perhaps the idea of spontaneity or accidents could be said to be very much at the core of this film, in a manner of speaking. And also how she wanted to do a courtroom drama, which is, again, very important here. And also how she describes it as being a kind of exhaustive, detail-oriented process. The lead up, the build up to the courtroom drama itself, and also the police inquiry, and also the quest towards truth. But as she describes it here, which I think is a really great way of describing it, the more we know, the less we understand, which is, I think, if there's any one way to describe a film, I think that's it. And wow, wow. And also, too, talking about her her concept of this film as being focusing in on the French judicial system. She also understands that there are many differences between the French judicial system on the one hand and the U.S., for instance, the U.S. Legal system on the other. And so she explains a little bit about those differences. For instance, how there's a focus on the judicial bench or the judge, and here we have a lot of interaction between the judge and the various sides of the proceedings, and also her work, Triet's work with the actors here. For example, with Milo Machado Graner, and how this young child actor was working with Ara, in terms of the casting and also coaching and guiding the young actor. And again, the performance by him is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, as well as the performance by Sandra Hüller. Again, a tour de force, and Triet mentions working with her, sort of collaboration with her, not just in this film, but in other collaborations, but also just the power and sort of confidence and various takes that she tried and endeavored. So this idea of structure, but also the idea of spontaneity and trying new things. And then also too, Triet mentions the idea of the conception of the script and writing the script, and how there are aspects of the film that are cerebral and that perhaps aren't reliant on dialogue so much, which was a challenge for her as well. And speaking of dialogue and spoken words, she does mention too the significance of language and the various languages that are part of this film. And how, and I love this way about how maybe there's some aspects of the film, especially early on, where we don't get so much words, in terms of quote unquote the action of the piece, or the chalet parts where the actual the event takes place, whether or not it is a crime. That is something that is part of the quest for truth and justice in the courtroom proceeding, but how the words of the court seem to be endeavoring to fill in the gaps, as she describes, which I think that's a great way of describing it. And also to working with animals. There's the Messi, Snoop, and working with animals. Sometimes there are moments where you get the animal point of view or the dog's point of view, and so. And then also she speaks a little bit about how she didn't rely so much on rehearsals. There weren't a lot of rehearsals according to Triet, but she was trying to get a sense of who the characters were based upon, among other things. The actor's own, say, sensibilities and own reference points, and then working too with the cinematographer Simon Beaufils. And then again, this is where she mentions some of the visual motifs, reference points, and I mentioned Richard Fleischer, See No Evil, or Boston Strangler, and also John Cassavetes' Opening Night is mentioned here, which is really great. And then she mentions too a little bit about the music and working with the editor. The editor here is Laurent Sénéchal, and also mentioning to Deleuze as a kind of inspiration point, which I find really quite brilliant indeed. So this is a great conversation, and again, so much to learn. Especially from my vantage point as being quite new into the world of the cinema of Triet. So this is really great. Again, this is a discussion with Justine Triet, approximately 26 minutes. Okay. But continuing on, let us go to the next supplement, which is alternate and deleted scenes. And this is described as the scenes presented here feature optional audio commentary by director Justine Triet. To listen to the commentary while viewing the scenes, press the audio key on your remote at any time. So as you can see, there is actually, we have a list of these alternate and deleted scenes. And there's an index here, so we can actually see what they are. They're described as the psychic, the reunion, the argument, the restaurant, and Vincent and Sandra. And in addition to those, we have what is called an introduction by Justine Triet. So there's actually a number of components here. So first of all, the introduction by Triet is approximately 4 minutes. And here Triet mentions about the sort of travails of editing and filming scenes that she really, really loved, but she had to excise and remove for one reason or another, but also trying to, maybe she was during the process of making this film, sometimes second guessing her judgment as to whether or not to include or remove scenes or to trim, etc. So that is mentioned during the course, among other things, during the course of this 4-minute intro. And then after the intro, or maybe before, depending on your timing, you can go to the scenes themselves, and you have the choice of going, as I say, to the index and playing your choice, and then going to each scene depending on your choice, or you have the option of playing them all in one go. And so I should mention totally the running time for this bulk, the alternate deleted scenes, is 33 minutes, plus the 4-minute intro. So 33 plus 4, so approximately 37 minutes total. And so, as I mentioned, or as it's mentioned here, you have the choice of watching these scenes either as they are with the sound or with the option of the audio commentary from Triet here as well. This is in French, so if you choose the optional commentary, the subtitles will, as I understand it, emerge to provide subtitling for the commentary track in French. So I don't want to go into too much detail, again, because there are certain aspects of it which I think go into some of the specific plot points of the film, but they are really fascinating. And if you think of the film in terms of divided into, say, the chalet scenes and then the courtroom scenes, I mean, there's an interesting divide, and then what happens after that. So there's an interesting divide between some of the sequences that are, say, in one part of the film, and then other sequences which are relevant to another part of the film. So very illuminating indeed. So the alternate and deleted scenes, totaling approximately 33 minutes, and then with the intro at 4 minutes. Then we have auditions. And here we have 3 sets of auditions. So the first one is Milo Machado Garner, and then Milo Machado Garner callback, and Antoine Reinhardt. So this is really great. So the first one is 8 minutes, the second one is 2 minutes, and the third one is 13 minutes. So Milo Machado Garner is, he plays the young boy, Daniel. And so the first part is a kind of audition where it's this videotaped audition, the young boy. And then we have a callback where we have a kind of a scene in a way. It's a very dramatic, say, rendition, which I think is, I understand, part of the audition process, because this is under the banner of auditions. Really interesting the way this is developed. And again, it's a reminder, too, of the ultimate brilliant performance that he will give in the film. And then the third one, Antoine Reinhardt, this is the actor who ultimately portrays the prosecutor of the courtroom scene. So it's this part is a kind of close up on his face as he delivers some intense dialogue. And this this part of the auditions is approximately 13 minutes. So 8 minutes, 2 minutes, and 13 minutes. So approximately, what is that? That's approximately 23 minutes total. So again, another intriguing aspect, again, the close-ups on the faces, and to see how much is there already in terms of their performance is really wonderful. So please check this out if you can. Then we have rehearsals. And this is described as, in preparation for the role of Daniel, actor Milo Machado Caña spent 3 months rehearsing with casting director and co-director of actors Cynthia Aja. This 2023 piece follows Machado Caña as he trains with actor Sandra Hüller and Messi, the dog that plays Snoop. Rehearsals, or Anatomie des répétitions. This is approximately 26 minutes as well. So this is really, really great. Again, there's a lot about getting to know the actors and to get to know each other and to have a sense of, because the intimacy is so important. This is true in terms of the mother and son relationship, also the child and the dog as well. It's very important. So, as well as other aspects, and how Cynthia Arra, who was mentioned too by Triet during the interview with Triet as well, as being a really key component and a collaborator, an artist as part of this work overall, and her work support and guiding and coaching. Milo Machado Caña is really great. So this is wonderful indeed. Please check this out if you can. This is totaling approximately 26 minutes. And then we have behind the scenes with Snoop. And this is described as, in this short program produced by Mademoiselle in 2023, animal coach Laura Martin discusses how she prepared the dog Messi for his role as Snoop in Anatomy of a Fall. This is really great. It's approximately 8 minutes. So she does describe working with, or how Snoop, or how Messi, I should say, excuse me, I apologize, how Messi was, how Messi worked on the set and the locations, and how sometimes there were some key scenes of Messi, and maybe a scene involving a ball, or a scene involving Messi's point of view, and how, in fact, Martin was actually on set or as an extra, so she could also be close and in close proximity with Snoop as well. So this is really, again, Snoop is such a such a key role in the film. So it's really great to have this. Again, this is approximately 8 minutes. And then we have the trailer, which rounds out the supplements as part of this great collection of supplements from Criterion. I'm very impressed with this. Some aspects of behind the scenes, again, and also notes from Triet herself, and seeing the layering of the actors and performance, including Snoop, Messi, Snoop. So I'm very impressed with this indeed. So it would have been great to have had more. I would have loved to have seen a comment or heard a commentary track, or maybe other discussion points as well. I'm still very, very impressed and very pleased with what we get in this Criterion release, and I certainly learned a lot indeed. And then just to round out other aspects of this, as I mentioned, I've already removed the insert, the fold-out insert, which, among other things, references the art. I really enjoyed this artwork, and the font, and we have pictures of the artwork renditions that are also part of the fold-out insert here, which are really great. The notes here indicate, in terms of production credits, art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, illustration Greg Ruth, designer Eric Skillman, art production coordinator William Braze, print production artist Craig Phillips, art assistant Julie Sussman, and then menu animations Mariam Fahmy. Well done indeed. And then in terms of the insert, again, it's a fold-out insert, so I'm not a fan of the fold-out insert. I'd much rather have, the pictures and the look of it, it's really great. I should say too, I'm sorry, before I move on, that the artwork, or the cover art, is there, and then as a continuity as far as the back of the disc, or the plastic case as well. And then, as I mentioned, I'm not a fan of the fold-out method per se, but I'm certainly impressed with, among other things, the art and the look of it, as well as the writing. And the writing here is Seeing and Believing by Alexandra Schwartz. This is another great one. I'm such a fan of this and just so many points about sort of the critical impact of this film, Triet's career, the context of her filmography, and how Anatomy of a Fall fits into that, and then some of the thematic key points of this. Again, the layering and layering, perception, truth, justice, etc. And this is great. So please, my strong suggestion, as always, is to watch the film first. And then after you've seen the film, I think you can enjoy this great essay. Alexander Schwartz's Seeing and Believing. So please check it out if you can. And so with that, my dear friends, that's the release here. And I'm just putting it back here into this case, Anatomy of the Fall. I think actually maybe it could go like this. When I opened it, it was actually looking like this. So that's where it is here. So it has Anatomy of the Fall. So I do like this use of the red disc color for Anatomy of the Fall, which is an interesting contrast to the white, which is sort of the motif, although there's a little bit of red as well, as we can see. So here we go. Anatomy of a Fall, Justine Triet's work, which is remarkable and such a compelling work indeed. And I, for one, am so impressed with this. This is the Criterion release of Anatomy of a Fall. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great, great works, including Anatomy of a Fall, including other films by Justine Triet, including other films in the Criterion Collection and beyond. So until the next video, my dear, dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.